Mayor Bloomberg has been on an environmental crusade lately, urging you to take public transportation to get more cars off the road.
Yeah, but a Fox investigation now has found that one of the mayor's own agencies, and ironically, it's the Department of Environmental Protection, sure has some questionable practices when it comes to the use of city cars.
Here's Fox 5's John Deutzman.
I refuse to give you any information.
This woman, named Safa Yaqub, works for the city's Department of Environmental Protection. She was allowed to take a city car to and from work all by herself. And when we stood outside the DEP headquarters in Flushing one morning, we saw lots of cars with just one driver driving in. Oh, there was an occasional carpool, something recommended by environmentalists, but the majority of the environmental protection cars only had one driver. And get this, Ms. Yaqub was not the only one in her household to take home a city car from the Department of Environmental Protection. When we were watching back in July, her husband, Makram Yaqub, also got to take home a city car.
Do you understand that most New Yorkers have to commute, and this is very weird that the husband and wife get two take-home cars?
We are working in different places, sir, and I refuse to give you any information.
Now, this story focuses in on Ms. Yaqub, but by the time we're done, you might have some questions about the 500 or so employees who get to take home DEP city cars. Here, Ms. Yaqub is leaving home for work. Unlike most New Yorkers who have to struggle with and pay for their daily commute, Yaqub was using a city car. Here she is getting into it one morning, and she's off to work. Along the way, she doesn't have to worry about things like the price of gas, car insurance, car payments. City taxpayers take care of it all. No train, bus, or subway fare, or worrying if mass transportation will make her late. She winds up at the DEP headquarters next to the Long Island Expressway, drives in, and enjoys free and very secure parking, also courtesy of the taxpayers of New York. The commute is about 10 miles each way, a 20-mile round trip every day. Now there's a subway stop here, and it's just a few blocks away from DEP headquarters. And here's a bus stop. The DEP headquarters is right across the street. You know, this is the public transportation the mayor keeps harping on. So what's so vital about Ms. Yaqub that she needs to take home a city car? A DEP spokesperson told us Ms. Yaqub is a first responder to emergencies and situations involving hazardous materials and things like chemical spills. They say she's in charge of a database for what's called the Right to Know program, which lists dangerous materials throughout the city. But curiously, her name is not on the DEP's own emergency response schedule obtained by Fox 5. In fact, the last time the city can account for her responding to any emergency was 6 years ago, in April of 2002. And as far as responding to an emergency, her city car didn't have lights or sirens like other DEP emergency cars do. So hopefully it's not one of those emergencies she would have to get too fast.
We're working on a story about take-home city cars.
And what's really strange is when we questioned her, she never mentioned her vital role as a first responder. Just that she used the car for more mundane things like presentations and inspections.
Yes, sir, I go and I do presentation.
This car is...
I refuse to give you any information. And if you tape this without my permission, I will get my lawyer.
This is a city vehicle and you're a city employee. Why do you have this car? You go out on inspections?
Yes, sir. And I go to ECB for violations, and I go do presentations.
From your house?
From my house sometimes, yes.
But despite all that, the spokesperson insists that in a major emergency, Ms. Yaqub would have to respond back to headquarters here and help other first responders using that crucial database that apparently only she and a few other people have access to. But then things changed dramatically. Despite her emergency role with the city, Ms. Yaqub supposedly voluntarily gave up her car based on doctor's orders due to stress caused by Fox 5. The DEP spokesperson telling us her doctor told her that these incidents were affecting her health and she didn't need the aggravation. And just like his wife, Mr. Yaqub was considered a first responder too, having to rush to water quality emergencies. But right after Fox 5 started asking questions, his car was taken away. The city telling us it had nothing to do with Fox 5, just a reorganization. The DEP says they are currently taking a close look into the use of take-home cars, At last count, more than 500 DEP employees are considered first responders, and every one of them gets to take home a city car. If there's any good news, most of them are gas-saving hybrids. We asked the DEP to provide paperwork proof that Ms. Yakub was authorized to take home a city car, but we never got it. Then we received this recent memo from the DEP to some of its employees. In part, it says, "We were not able to locate many of the overnight vehicle authorization forms. Effective immediately, personnel will not be required any longer to take any vehicles overnight until the overnight authorization forms are approved by the agency." Now, despite what that memo says, believe it or not, the DEP spokesperson tells us that 522 DEP employees considered emergency first responders are still allowed to take city cars home. I'm John Deutzman, Fox 5 News.
And John says this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to questionable use of city cars. He plans to keep digging. He would also like to hear your opinion on the matter. So what do you think? You pay for the cars. Go to John Deutzman's blog at myfoxny.com. All right, wasting the public's tax money during an economic crisis can be an embarrassing problem for New York.
That is why one agency is scrambling to explain themselves after a Fox 5 investigation into the questionable use of city cars.
And here's Fox 5's John Deutzman.
1, 2, 3.
On the very same day that Mayor Bloomberg announced major cutbacks to help dig the city out of financial trouble, and 2 months after Fox 5 started asking questions,
This is a city vehicle and you're a city employee. Why do you have this car?
the very same troubling questions along with the city cars keep rolling in. It's before 8 in the morning a week ago outside the city's Department of Environmental Protection headquarters in Flushing, and dozens of cars with just one driver arrive at work. It seems many DEP employees are using the city cars in their daily commute. A curious phenomenon by the same agency in charge of protecting our environment, given the mayor's own environmental crusade, which includes a desire to get cars off the road and urging all of us to use public transportation. Even stranger that after 2 months of questioning, the DEP has not provided Fox 5 with one piece of evidence that any of the 500 or so take-home cars have the proper mandatory paperwork that is required before you take a city car home. When we started looking into the problem, the DEP told us that all of the take-home cars are necessary for 522 employees categorized as first responders to department emergencies.
And everyone has to use a city car.
Our investigation started in early July, acting on a tip that this woman named Safa Yakub and her husband Makram had the luxury of taking home a city car each. They both were considered emergency first responders, with taxpayers footing the bill for things like gas, car insurance, and car payments. City policy makes it very clear that if you take home a city car to respond to emergencies, that you frequently have to respond to emergencies. In fact, it says you have to average one emergency a week. But despite her supposed status as a first responder, Ms. Yakub had not responded to any emergencies in more than 6 years, since April of 2002. Her need for the car was highly questionable, and she recently stopped taking home her city car, claiming Fox 5's questioning made her sick.
Do you understand that most New Yorkers have to commute, and this is very weird that the husband and wife get 2 take-home cars?
We are working in different places, sir, and I refuse to give you any information.
Her husband's car was taken away immediately after we started asking questions. Now it looks like the DEP is realizing they may have a problem. This comes 2 months after we started our investigation. Just hours after our recent appearance outside DEP headquarters, where a security guard watched our every move, DEP Commissioner Emily Lloyd sent out this memo to her deputy commissioners, urging them to go through the proper procedures before allowing an employee to take home a city car. It says, in part, once you have made those assignments, they must be submitted to the Bureau of Human Resources in writing for review and approval consistent with citywide policies governing automobile use by city employees. Please review all of your authorizations to make sure they are properly documented. We thought Deputy DEP Commissioner Robert Alvatrani might be able to help us understand the seemingly large number of take-home cars in his agency.
Do you guys really have 522 emergency first responders that really need a car?
John, I'm going to refer you to the press office. There are 522 cars in the agency, but not all are emergency responders. But they have the answers for you.
He kept referring us to the press office, the same office that since July told us that all 522 cars are assigned to first responders.
Do you know why there isn't any paperwork at all?
I honestly can't answer that question.
We let the deputy commissioner go to work in his take-home Ford Explorer. In the meantime, we figured we should take this one all the way to the top. The question, Your Honor, is, in light of your crusade for the environment, to get people to use public transportation, to get cars off the road, how can something like that go on, and apparently goes on in other departments too?
Generally, our policy is that people can only take cars home if they're going straight off to doing something or have for the city or have to be involved in emergency response. I'll be happy to take a look at it and we'll get you the numbers. I just can't stand up here and tell you whether they're doing it right or wrong.
It gets even weirder. We were contacted by many DEP employees after the first part of our investigation aired, and they told us that they do respond frequently to emergencies north of the city as they try to protect the reservoirs and water supply. But get this, they tell us they do not get city take-home cars. I'm John Deutzman, Fox 5 News.
Now, John Deutzman tells us the DEP is in the process of reevaluating its take-home car procedures, and now they claim that not all of the 522 cars in question were given to so-called first responders. Some of those cars went to employees who drive from their home to assignments in the field. To find out exactly what the citywide take-home car policy is, and you can tell us what you think on this story, you can go to John Deutzman's blog on our website, myfoxny.com.